The weather is about to take a dramatic turn, and this will lead to a ton of snow and the worst cold that we've seen this winter. Temperatures are about to take an even sharper plunge, and many areas could be dealing with dangerous conditions for days. This isn't just a quick cold snap. It's a pattern that's growing even stronger and more intense. At the same time, the atmosphere is gearing up for something even more chaotic. We are tracking 3 different winter storms that could arrive one after another, and each one may behave differently. Some could dump heavy and disruptive snow. Others may bring sneaky bands of slippery ice, and a few places might get hit by all of these storms with little time in between. And the truth is, confidence is growing that this weather pattern is only going to get more intense as we go later into December. So, in today's forecast, we are going to break down exactly what you need to know about this brutal weather pattern that is about to develop in the United States. And to talk more about this major weather pattern change that is coming to the United States, I want to talk more about our jet stream. This is essentially what controls our weather patterns that are happening across the country, and right now, our jet stream is actually oriented out of the northwest, and this is already helping to keep many areas in the United States below average for temperatures. That is especially true across the Midwest, the Great Lakes, and back through the Northeast. But what's going to be crazier is, as we go into the middle and end of this week, our jet stream is actually going to get even more oriented out of the northwest, which means very strong winds aloft are going to be basically transporting lots of cold air out of Canada into the lower 48. But here's the thing. If you're over in the Rockies or anywhere in the desert southwest, that is where an intense ridge is going to be building. This is very important because what's going to happen by the middle and end of the week is that this high-pressure system is going to intensify, which means our troughing is only going to get stronger along the eastern and central tiers of the United States, which is going to make things a lot colder by the middle and end of the week. And one of the things that I've been seeing here on the last few runs from the GFS model and a lot of other reliable computer models is that, by Friday and Saturday, we are going to see a much more organized jet stream with very strong winds coming right out of Canada. And this is the perfect setup for a major Arctic blast that could dive temperatures across much of the United States by as much as 30 to 40 degrees below average. So, this is definitely something that we need to be watching for very closely as, if this Arctic blast is to happen, which appears likely as of right now, this would really plummet temperatures, and it would bring a widespread freeze to over 24 states. So, this is very important to watch for. Now, there's a couple of big topics we need to talk about in this forecast. One of which is the Arctic blast that is likely next weekend, and then the second thing is all the different winter storms that are coming. I want to talk first, though, about our temperature trends. Right now, we have a below-average temperature sitting across the northern plains, the Midwest, and the Great Lakes, and even across the Northeast, and then above-average temperatures are building in the Rockies and along the West Coast. By Tuesday and Wednesday, you guys are going to get a break from that cold air in the Midwest and also back into the Ohio Valley, as we are expecting a very brief increase in our temperatures for Tuesday and Wednesday. Many areas in Illinois, even southern Wisconsin and Iowa, will actually be above freezing on Tuesday and even Wednesday, which means some of that snow that has accumulated here over the last 48 hours will be melting off. But it's not going to last long, because by late Wednesday and Thursday, we are going to get another shot of cold air around a new low-pressure system that is forecasted to bring heavy snow across the northern plains, the Midwest, and the Great Lakes. That'll be mostly on Tuesday and Wednesday, and we'll talk more about that here in a moment. But look at this. By Wednesday night, all that cold air that is sitting just north of the Rockies is only basically getting prepared to unleash across the United States. That's all going to be building up on Wednesday and Thursday, and then as we go into Thursday and Friday, we are expecting that those jet stream winds, the very strong winds aloft, are going to carry all of that cold air into the Great Plains. It's basically going to be perfect in terms of the setup here, because our Rocky Mountains right here, that is our Rocky Mountain line, all that cold air is going to stay just to the east of the Rockies, and it's all going to plunge into the Great Plains, the Midwest, and the Ohio Valley by Friday and Saturday. And this will likely end up being the coldest stretch of weather that we've had since February of this year. So, big changes are coming, Friday and Saturday across the United States. We could have some areas in a significant record-breaking territory. We could have areas down in the southeast even as low as 35 degrees below average. That does not include Florida, but Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, likely gonna be as much as 30 to 40 degrees below average by Saturday. Sunday and Monday, that cold air will continue to linger along the East Coast and all across the Midwest. This cold air, though, could last much longer than these last few Arctic blasts that we've had in the Midwest. I think what's happening is that we're basically having appetizers in terms of our Arctic blasts in the Midwest right now, and then this is gonna be the main course. This is gonna be the one that's gonna bring that cold air for a much longer period of time, probably at least 72 to 96 hours, which is about 3 to 4 days for most areas east of the Rockies. And here are the temperature anomalies with degrees Fahrenheit being displayed in terms of how cold it'll be below average by Friday and Saturday. And notice that we will likely have a huge plume of very below average temperatures across the Midwest and the Ohio Valley. This is Saturday morning. As much as 35 degrees below average in a very large area. Kentucky, Indiana, Illinois, back into Iowa, South Dakota, and Alabama. And then by Sunday and Monday, all that cold air just lingers across the East Coast, and we could even get a little dessert across the Midwest. I know, we're talking a lot about food right now, but we could even have a little dessert after this main course that happens, with another shot of Arctic air being possible in the Midwest on Monday. And I know some of you are probably wondering, is this definitely going to happen? Well, there is a slim chance still that this Arctic blast may not be nearly as widespread as the GFS model is showing, but it is very likely that we will have a prolonged stretch of cold air at least for a few days for much of the United States. The other scenario that would be at play is that our Arctic blast essentially happens a little bit further off to the north and east and impacts more areas in the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes, and the Northeast. But this scenario that the GFS model has shown for over 4 runs now is indicating that Arctic air dive all the way down towards the Gulf Coast and into the southeast. This has been very consistent with other models as well, so this is really what we need to be really focused on here over the next few days. And assuming there's no major changes to the forecast, this is gonna be a really significant Arctic blast for many of you. Now, I do think it's a little too early to get into specific details on temperatures for every single day, but this is at least what the GFS model is showing by Saturday morning for low temperatures. This does not include the wind, which will make it feel even colder. And most of the Midwest and the northern plains will be sub-zero, and then our freezing line all the way down towards the Gulf Coast. And then Sunday morning is even worse, with that freezing line perhaps as far south as Orlando, Florida, and then sub-zero temperatures possible in upstate New York, back into the Appalachian Mountains, and across the northern plains. Now, we need to talk about the other side of all of this weather, and that is going to be our precipitation, which my light just turned off. Oh, it turned back on. Alright, great. Laughs, so we're gonna talk more about the precipitation here over the next few days, and we are gonna start with tomorrow, which is Monday. We had a decent amount of snow move across the Midwest yesterday, and that has now moved out. And we're gonna be looking at a little bit of snow tomorrow, back over in parts of Virginia, North Carolina, and West Virginia. Very light snow though overall. It's not gonna be anything more than a coating to a couple of inches. Late Monday into Tuesday, we're gonna have some energy that's gonna move over the Pacific Northwest, and this is actually gonna move over the Rockies on Tuesday. And this is going to lead to our next winter storm. I do anticipate that we'll at least see some blizzard conditions on Tuesday across North Dakota and Minnesota as heavy snow is gonna be moving through. And with a very strong low-pressure system forecasted, that means the winds are gonna be very strong, which means things are gonna get a little bit hairy across Minnesota and North Dakota throughout the daytime on Tuesday. Late Tuesday night and early Wednesday, heavy snow is gonna be rocking much of Wisconsin. There is a possibility of some snow with this, but this particular Arctic blast that is coming I do not think is going to be bringing it that much snowfall. I don't think